So I figured I'd just kind of close out the stupid vlogging and do a final stupid vlog. Uh, just because the stupid vlogging was kind of a COVID era thing. Not that things are, not that I would say the pandemic is over, and I don't know if we will be able to say that, but I think the first video I made, the reason I was wanting to kind of ramble about my daily life was because I was thinking about the fact that most of the time I'm kind of on myself to like do activities in the community, like go to church or go to meetup groups or like volunteer and stuff like that. You know, that's what usually makes me feel better. But I was suddenly realizing that I had to kind of switch my interior motivation because a lot of the stuff that I was always trying to get myself to do were actually bad things to do because of the pandemic. And so while in the world and the country the pandemic isn't over, I guess for me personally, the way that it was kind of affecting my lifestyle kind of is over, and that I'm really at a point where I can try to switch my motivation back and be trying to go out and just do things. And that's good because I think on a selfish level, that was a really difficult aspect of like social distancing and stuff. Anyway, so I had kind of been thinking of making a video where I would more like officially flounce from my YouTube, because I've had this channel for like 14 years and I think I made it when I was 17 or 18, and ever since then I've kind of gone through phases of posting totally different things on here. Like I think for the last few years I mostly was doing like movie and TV reviews. I used to make videos about being autistic. I used to do music. So basically, of the subscribers I have that actually still use their account, which may not be many, a lot of them probably aren't interested in hearing me just talk, especially about nothing. I should note that I actually have a dedicated music channel that I made a couple of years ago, but I didn't promote it very well. I think I promoted it in a video of myself talking about it. So like the people who weren't interested in watching videos of me talking because they only wanted videos with music probably didn't click on it. Anyway, I've recently noticed that YouTubers can make like community posts that their subscribers will see, so I'm gonna do that. And hopefully, if anyone's interested in the dedicated music channel, they can subscribe to that. I don't always update it very much, but everything that I update it with is music, so if that's what you want to watch, you can. And I occasionally, when I'm watching lots of like good video essays that I really like, I end up wanting to make video essays. Probably something I don't have the chops for, but if I ever end up doing that, I will also make a new channel for that and I will link to it. However, I don't think I want to fully flounce from this channel because sometimes a person just wants to vlog to like the one or two people that are probably gonna watch it, like which I appreciate that like anyone watches these, especially given that I feel like everyone probably subscribed to me for something else. Anyways, since COVID restrictions are not affecting my life that much now, I was just going to process something kind of dumb but has been upsetting me, which is that I am in a long distance relationship. We started dating right before the pandemic, and so we weren't able to see each other for 16 months, and we finally saw each other last week, and even though we had a good time, I kept getting this feeling of like sadness and anxiety that like the visit was like soon going to be over. Afterwards, like my partner said something like, "Oh, it's hard to say goodbye until next time, isn't it?" Because I was upset, and I said like, for me, it just always feels like goodbye. Like I think I've always been a bit like this with them. Like long before we were dating, I just was always so happy to see them that I didn't really want to say goodbye. But I think because of like the amount of like long build up to us seeing each other, like when we actually made the plans, like a week seemed like a reasonable amount of time for us to visit. But then like once the week started, I was like, oh no, there's only like 6 days left. Like with every day, like I kept getting more and more like sad and anxious about how like short our visit felt. Until like by the very end, I felt like I was somebody trying to like hit the snooze button on their alarm clock to just kind of like squeeze out a little bit more time with them. And yeah, so I guess I wasn't feeling quite as good as I hoped. Like, prior to the visit, I went for a while through this kind of doom spiral where I spent like a week having this really strong sense of doom that like my partner wouldn't like my apartment, would realize they didn't really like me, I would realize I didn't really like them, or we just like wouldn't have fun on the visit. I spent a while thinking about that. Then it kind of peaked and like went back over to me being like, oh, actually, like we do like each other a lot. We'll probably have a good time, which is basically what happened. But I think there was like, just after so much buildup, I ended up feeling a bit sad during the visit anyway, which was kind of a bummer. And yeah, I'm also very prone to kind of having like emotional crashes after having really good experiences. My friend Claire calls it a feelings hangover. Like after like a parade or something like that, like I'll just be super bummed out, which actually I find really depressing. I think it's also probably an aspect of what was going on. It's like a little bit hard to like really enjoy yourself if you know that you're going to feel bad from enjoying yourself later. And then, okay, I wanted to think about something else, but I haven't thought about it super well. I think because of my relative lack of experience being in relationships, and especially the fact that this relationship was preceded by several years of pining for my partner, like, it's like, I think I have this somewhat like storybook fictional idea of relationships where if you're with a person that you really like, you're supposed to feel like completely blissed out all the time. And so I think like part of me hasn't quite learned how to just realize that like not every moment that you spend with someone that you like, you're not going to be like completely blissed out the whole time. And I don't mean this to say that like we had bad times together or we had fights. It's just like even just feeling normal. I think because I haven't had many long-term relationships, well, I've had one and it was an awful relationship. It was like I mean, the person I was dating was an awful person, and I was like afraid to end the relationship because she was so awful. And I was afraid, you know, what would happen. And so there was kind of like the sort of up and down thing that you get with like an abusive or like really shitty partner, where like, you know, whenever your partner is like slightly nice to you, you're like totally blissed out and you think it's like the hottest and most romantic thing that's ever happened. But like, you know, even despite that, like most of our relationship just like was pretty shitty all the time. And so like, yeah, I think this is my first time being with somebody that I really like, who really likes me, who's nice to me, who I have fun with, and like, I don't know, sort of realizing that this isn't like a story where you get together at the end, but it's just life, like, you know, not necessarily being with them in person every day, but like having them as my partner every day. You know, life is still going to be like normal life with normal things in it. It's not going to be like a happy ending because it's life. I guess that's what I was thinking about. I can't remember if I've talked about like the whole backstory of my relationship. I'm just gonna do it now because every so often I find myself wanting to like write a piece of writing about it or something, but I find it so embarrassing that it begins with like 4 years of me pining for somebody who I thought wasn't interested in me. Like, it's just embarrassing to admit that that happened. And I guess it's sort of like the way Stan Lee met his wife. He arrived at the door of her sorority house intending to go on a date with another girl, and like when she answered the door, he was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to marry you, I've like seen your face in my dreams or something. And they like actually got together. I think the thing is like, if you actually get together with somebody, like maybe you like don't have to feel embarrassed about like the stupid things that you did, even though like what Stan Lee did like objectively is totally crazy and inappropriate. Like if you do get together with a person and things actually work out, it's like that kind of proves you right, I guess. But there's a part of me who like can't even start to like talk or think about like the way that I met my partner, or like the incredibly long amount of time that I spent pining for them, without just feeling stupid and feeling the way that I felt for years, which was like, oh my gosh, like why am I pining for someone who I don't think is into me, like, why can't I just get over feeling that way? Because I think common sense is that you're supposed to be able to get over feeling that way, but I just, like, super wasn't. So, I am particular. I'll just put it that way because I don't want to go into details, but I'm particular and I'm not attracted to very many people. And so the longest relationship I'd ever had was like a year and a half when I was 23 and 24. And that was with the person who was abusive and just really shitty to me. And after that, I didn't really meet anybody that I liked, and honestly was a little bit messed up from being in that type of relationship. I think this is pretty common for people who've been in some kind of abusive situation. At first, like, whenever I would even be attracted to anybody, you know, I would, like, my immediate reaction would, like, be fear. It's like this whole negative response was, like, stacked on top of being attracted to people. And, but there's also the fact that I just am particular. Like, I just didn't really meet anybody that I was interested in. So, like, 3 years went by. I was now 27, and I was basically online. I met the person who is now my partner, and before we even knew anything about each other, we really loved each other's writing, and we really liked talking to each other on the forum where we met. And it was very, like, because of the... Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to talk about this without, to somebody who doesn't, like, go on this specific forum, but because of, like, different screen names and stuff, it took a little bit of time for me to put together that, like, this person whose writing I really liked was also the person I'd been having these conversations with, and a couple other things. And so it was like on each of these different axes, I already felt really connected to this person. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but, like, I definitely sometimes have times when it's not quite parasocial, but it's like when you know someone online and your relationship with them is fairly anonymous, like you don't know their real name, and, like, you maybe haven't interacted with them that much, but you've read, like, their blog or their stories or something like that. Like, I don't know, it's like you feel like you have this very deep connection to them, but it's also this kind of anonymous and, like, very intellectual feeling connection because you don't really know anything about their real life or what they look like or even what their name is. So I felt like that about them, but, like, I felt like that about them on, like, a few different ways because I thought they were a few different people. So when I realized that they were all one person, I don't know, my feelings for this person were very intense. And I didn't know at the time, but, like, they also felt this way about me. So we both had, like, a really big crush on a person on the internet that we didn't know. And so we eventually became kind of more like real type internet friends where we actually knew each other's names and we actually talked about what we were doing and everything. However, they are much more polite than I am. I'm much more blunt. So we kind of had this two-way... Okay, we met writing fan fiction. I can say the word fan fiction. We had a very fan fiction-esque mutual pining dynamic where they thought that I was, like, extremely mad at them and didn't like them very much because they perceived me as being extremely mean. And on the other hand, I perceived them as being very reserved. And so I always kind of thought they were, like, this sort of polite person who was kind of tolerating me, who kind of liked me a little bit as a friend, but, like, definitely wasn't into me. And, like, I mean, it's so stupid because I remember, like, overanalyzing this so much for years. Like, instead of ever just telling them that I liked them, I would, like, sort of go through, like, all the reasons why, like, they couldn't possibly be into me. And then, of course, I would always go through all the reasons why I shouldn't be pining for them. Like, it is objectively stupid to be in love with somebody for years and, like, kind of hold them up in your head as, like, the romantic ideal if you think that they're not interested in you. And it seemed so, like, objectively clear to me that they weren't interested in me. I guess this is the thing that I find myself wanting to talk or write about. I guess it was like 3 years ago when I found out that they actually also felt the same way about me. But because I had always thought, like, if anything ever happens between us, and this is really pathetic, but I had always thought, like, if anything ever happens between us, it'll be because they're, like, on the rebound or something. It wouldn't be because they really liked me. And so finding out that they liked me was actually something that kind of outside of, like, romantic things or our specific relationship kind of altered my whole perception of myself and my life. Like, I think the realization that someone could have been really into me for 3 years and I thought that they didn't like me, to the point that it had actually kind of formed, like, part of my identity. Like, you know, it had formed part of my identity that, like, this person didn't like me back. And then I found out that they actually did. I guess it just, like, it was weird because it made me realize how much, like, what you perceive as the truth, especially when it's, like, the truth of other people's feelings about you, isn't actually true. And then I think it's also just because, like, to me, I came off so, like, over the top, pathetically piney, that it was, like, really weird to me that they thought that I didn't like them. And, like, a little bit more time went by before, like, we were able to really sort out, like, the types of miscommunications that we had and stuff like that. Anyway, then we didn't actually get together until, like, a year after that. And I think for all of the time that I was pining for them, I kept always trying to tell myself that I wasn't being logical and, like, being with them wouldn't actually be that great. So I kept trying to sort of analyze, like, why I was pining for them. And, like, I couldn't just admit that I was pining for them because they're really great. Like, I had to be like, oh, I'm just pining for them because, like, I must be, like, afraid to have a real relationship. Like, I must be afraid to, like, actually meet someone, so I'll just pine for this unattainable person. Anyway, once we actually started dating, I realized I was just pining for them because they're, like, a hot person that I, like, really wanted to be with, and things were, like, as good as I always thought they would be. But I think, sorry, I forgot where I was going with this. I think it's just because of, like, the lack of experience with, like, actual long-term, like, day-to-day relationship has made me feel it's weird that this whole miraculous thing happened to me, which I probably made sound really boring by describing it the way that I did, but something that to me is nothing short of miraculous, that I met somebody who I'd never felt this way about before, and for years I thought that they weren't into me, but they actually were, and it was great. Like, I guess the fact that, like, something miraculous can happen, but then it's not actually, I don't know, every day you aren't just, like, drowning in the light of the miracle is definitely makes sense. But there's a part of me who just, out of lack of relationship experience, like, feels, like, stressed out and, like, worried that something is wrong if it doesn't feel magical at, like, every moment. And kind of stresses me out a bit because I think I tried to use similar language to, like, trying to talk myself into feeling okay when I was in an abusive relationship. Like, you know, trying to tell myself that just because, like, sometimes we're bad didn't mean that it wasn't worth working on and stuff like that. Even though I know it's not really the same thing, but yeah, I don't know. So that's what I've been thinking about. Really, really exciting, I know. Anyway, I was once again reading a fan fiction as I was coming back from the end of our visit, and there was a line in it that actually made me feel better. It was something about, like, that you should just focus on, like, avoiding the things that you hate instead of trying to get the things that you want. I think it was supposed to feel dark, but it actually made me feel a bit better of, like, all the stress of, like, oh my gosh, what if our relationship isn't perfect and I'm not in a state of bliss every moment? Like, I think it's not a bad idea to just kind of, like, be like, it's a good idea to, like, be with a partner that I really like, who really likes me, who I have a good time with and isn't doing anything bad to me. That's pretty much, like, 4 for 4, and, like, it's good. I know what kind of relationship I don't want to be in, and that would be easy to avoid. I think it's a little bit harder to just sort of like settle. I mean, not settle, but like settle down in realizing that like just showing up for something every day, I don't know, feels different from an ending. Okay, that's the end of me trying to talk about this. I might end up deleting this video and having to make a different closeout final vlogging video. I thought this would be an interesting subject, but I actually kind of suck at talking about it. It's just too weird.